Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I want to bring something to our attention that I feel is a little missing in my personal experience in this process and the years to come afterwards. And that's one thing I see that has been a tendency that's been problematic, that maybe kind of connects to the good protester, bad protester concept, is this idea of seeing young black men as victims. And we're not all victims. Some of us are in open combat with white supremacy, like myself, like other comrades in the room, and sisters, not just the brothers, but there's this thing about seeing us as, this disempowered body on display, being killed all the time, right? And there's a tendency for people in these circles, in these cultures, to want to brush aside people who maybe take a more militant position. I myself have been threatened and pushed out of discussions and disempowered in processes I've spent months working on. Spent many frustrating hours of my life dealing with people in order to try to work together with people that I don't necessarily agree with, I don't necessarily like, but for the sake of the cause that we're all trying to come together for. I'm not the only one. There's actually a lot of us. This is an ongoing thing. While there was these demonstrations happening, there was a lot of young people that were organizing on college campuses, that were going to high schools, doing presentations. There's people doing different workshops, different things, a wide range of things, And since then, there's been a lot of different events. There's been different people who are killed, people that we rally for, people that we march for, so on and so forth. There's a tendency to be afraid of people who are going to just straight up tell the truth. Mm-hmm. There's a tendency to be afraid of people who don't want a token appeasement. And I'm not looking to create a conflict or open any wounds or anything, But there's a legacy of these efforts, right? There's a legacy of what we learned from the process of a community coming together to address this heinous act on the part of these police officers. Part of that legacy is that when things happen, whether they be here, whether they be in Florida, whether they be in Michigan, whether they be in other parts of the world, whether they be in Palestine, whether they be in Egypt, wherever they may be, people in Oakland come together and have a response. People are attempting to think globally and act locally, as some people say. And this is something that a big part of this came from people sticking to the script and sticking to their principles, even despite being pushed off in the corner, even despite being silenced, even despite being character assassinated. And so that's something we got to think about, and I don't want to create a conflict, and that's why I'm not being any more specific than that. That's why I'm not saying people's names. That's why I'm not talking about specific situations I've experienced. Some people in this room know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people have had that experience. Some people, they know what's up. And so, you know, I don't want to be more specific than that, but there are ongoing things that people are dealing with. I myself am looking at felony charges and potentially up to 5 years in jail for being at a Trayvon Martin march. Now, my uncle, Saani, is one of the representatives of the Short Corridor Collective in Pelican Bay. And there was a large group of young people who came together to mobilize to Corcoran Prison this summer. We got the news about Zimmerman's acquittal while we were on the bus on the way back from Corcoran. Immediately, the work starts happening in conversations on the bus ride on the way back to Oakland of how we're going to address this in Oakland. Right? We're operating already from the leadership that's been provided to us from the people in the SHU, from the Short Corridor Collective, which consists of all races represented in the California prison system, right? Shot callers, people who have major influence and have taken a stance of open resistance to the prison system. People who have accepted the fact they'll never be released from the SHU. Like my Uncle Saani, who wrote to me as a little boy telling me that he knew they would never release him, and the best thing he could hope to do is make a great contribution to the struggle to destroy that system, and to provide for me a foundation of principles which I could then follow and be able to make some contribution as well. Now, we're all coming on this mindset, coming from this very small, short time rally at Corcoran, feeling like we just put in all this months and months worth of effort and hours on the trip over to be in front of Corcoran for about 20 minutes and take some pictures, have some banners, have a handful of speakers. And knowing all the time and effort that we're putting into address that, the frustration that goes along with that, the frustration that goes along with having all of this energy and life and momentum moving towards justice, and then being kind of corralled in a way. On our way back, we immediately were putting in place plans of marching and organizing rallies for that night, for the next night, for the next day. Different types of things. It's my firm belief that my arrest and subsequent charges, I was also beaten and taken to the hospital because the police kind of roughed me up. I'm not, that's like something I expect from the police, right? We're, some of us, still dealing with this as a problem in our lives because of the historical stance that we've taken. From the beginning, in 2009, I was already speaking out against police and prisons. Not as an isolated occasion of miserably killing Oscar Grant, but as a systemic problem that is one of the main foundations of this society. Right? And always putting it that way, right? And forgive me if I'm speaking too much because, this is just not even a part of this program, which is a problem. So I'm just going to make sure that these certain things get represented and, bear witness to that truth, right? Now, still facing charges for being at a march where I was arrested and beaten up, as well as a friend of mine, a brother named Tenzin Doha. Now, 4 other people were arrested, and their charges never even saw court. Us, because we have been outspoken in our writing, in our speech at rallies and so forth, are being targeted for state violence in the form of jail time, which could potentially land us in the penitentiary. We're not talking about county time, we're talking about San Quentin time. Now, this movement about supporting our youth and being behind our brothers has been absent. And for the most part, our support has come only from young people. With a handful of elders that have been coming through, it's been pretty much all young people. And I would like to challenge us to be a little more accountable than that. I would like to challenge us to be a little more responsible to what we pay in lip service, to what we're saying here that we're standing for, to what we're patting ourselves on the back for doing. I would like to challenge us to not just let that get swept under the rug and not just get these lives just tossed to the pen because young people want to stand up for something that's right.
That's right. All right.
And the next court date is January 13th.
Where?
In the morning. It's going to be on 7th in Washington. I believe it's Department 115, if I'm not mistaken. This is a continuation of the violence against Trayvon Martin.
January 13th.
And this is something that should be a part of this larger discussion about the legacy of Oscar Grant 5 years after the fact, right? This is something that should also be noted, that while they were releasing other people and dismissing their charges, people who, some people have supposedly thrown fireworks at police, and there's all kinds of things happening. A person got hit in the face with a hammer after we got arrested. People were igniting firecrackers and throwing them at the police. Somebody kicked the police in the chest. All these things happened after we were arrested. And the police and the judge and the DA, knowing I'm fighting cancer, refused to release me and OR me because it's a punishment for taking a stand. And I'm going to take this stand whether somebody's going to be behind me or not. Because wallahi, that's what Allah put on my heart to do, and that's my obligation to fulfill.
Right on. January 13th.
So just let me finish, bruh. Just let me finish. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
I'm going to do it regardless. Other people going to stand up and do it regardless. But if you want those words to mean something, I hope that you will follow through on that.
Right on. January 13th.
What time?
North County.
In the morning, we're asking people to be there about 8:30.
8:30. Department
115.
115. January 13th. 9 a.m. Court.
8:30.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. Because we got.